Texas, Houston, Kingwood are flooded again. Many friends have just recovered from Harvey and are flooded again. And today I got a notice on Facebook from one that said, hey, the water's 2 inches away from coming in, which probably means some of it's going to wash in. But he said, but our other friend in fear as well. They're flooded again. And who bears the cost? We're not only talking about the costs that the insurance companies, the ones that are going to have to perform on, but what they're going through in the stress. That's going to take time. That's going to take effort. That's going to put them in a stressful condition, in an ill condition. And it never really had to be. And that is what's so hurtful about all of this. These things are things that creep up on you that have been in the making for decades, And, we try to change it in real time. Those of us who are activists, those of us who do things, we really try to inform in such a manner that when we're telling folks we need to do X, Y, and Z, people just don't think that, well, you want to control my life. No, we want to make life good for everybody. So, it's disconcerting that so many of us are going through that right now. So for those of you that are having a hard time right now, my heart goes out to you. So I wrote a little rant on Facebook where I said, I'm officially pissed and need to rant, but I do not like to write in this state, so I will wait before I post a longer prose. But when policy devastates people's lives, it's hard to be silent. The corporate political crookedness responsible for the successive floods in Houston area and beyond are a direct result of believing and acquiescing to the crap from evil corporations, their willfully enslaved wards, and their purchased politicians. And I really mean this. And when I say I mean those words, I'm not trying to say those words weren't for hyperbole. I now have friends that will go through a rebuilding process yet again in less than 2 years for no fault of their own. When you hear this, when you see this, if it doesn't touch you on a visceral level, who are you? When one person gave the impression like, this is an act of God or whatever. And I beg to differ. This is no act of God. A volcano exploding is an act of God. An earthquake created because you're pressurizing the earth in the middle of Hard Rock, Texas, that's not an act of God. That's an act of man. We are having earthquakes throughout these areas that we're mining petrocarbons. Homes are being rocked off their rockers because of the high pressure wastewater we're putting into the ground. When the earth shifts and cause that, these companies try to absolve blame. Places that never had earthquakes before, that is easier to calculate. That is easier to quantify, right? But what about this climate? What about what's happening? What about these storms that are getting worse? People say, oh, well, there have been bad storms before. Don't forget, Lisa in Galveston that wiped out everybody in Galveston? That was a bad storm. Yeah, but we used to talk in terms of these types of flooding 500-year events. And you can actually scientifically give a reason why they occur in those kinds of period of time. We can talk about cumulative accumulation of weather in certain parts. There are a lot of scientific reasons. A lot of it beyond the scope of my knowledge, given that I'm not a climatologist, I'm an engineer. There are a lot of things beyond that scope that one can go through, right? There are things that we know sometimes we cannot quantify easily. One of the things I then said is, these are not acts of God. This is the cumulative action of what man has done to the environment and where they have encouraged people to live. This is just physics playing out. Sadly, those responsible for the problem would like one to see it as an unlucky act of God. This is no act of God. This is science. It is science. Every oil company's scientist has climate modeled. They have modeled this perfectly. Don't sit down there and think, oh, this is some accident. No. Their scientists have modeled it, and that model has gone to researchers, what you call marketers, and all these kind of guys to create a message not to mess with their product. So let's not sit back here and think, oh, there are some innocents. And when I speak about how some of these corporations are, I am just being some crazy lefty that hates democracy or hates corporations, or not in the least. I love good corporations. I think there is a place for private enterprise and there's a place for the commons. But we have to know where to put them, and we also have to make sure that they're doing their job, and we also have to make sure that they're doing no harm. There are court documents. They know exactly what is happening. That is why I do not mince words when I say and refer to them as evil.